Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm going to be talking about episode 12 of season 1 of Green Lantern, the animated series. Well folks, here we are barreling towards the season finale and things are really kicking into high gear. There's a lot going on, so let's get down to talking about it. The first thing that I want to talk about is that while there is quite a bit of smart thinking on both of the parts of the heroes and the villains in this episode, there's also some seriously dumb thinking going on. And I want to talk about that before we get into everything else. The first is, of course, that Atrocitus really could just pay our crafty Hawkman con artist off and say, okay, so he could really just say to the guy, okay, I'll pay you, but I'm not giving you the money until I see that your code works. And instead, he's just decided to torture the guy, even though it is pointed out to him that he can torture this guy as much as he wants. There's still no guarantee that that will get him the information that he wants. And again, this is just the problem here is that Atrocitus refuses to be in any way, shape, or form pragmatic about the situation. Again, given all of the resources he has, he could easily afford to pay this guy off, and he just refuses to do it out of pride, I guess. It's just really sad to see Atrocitus, who has so far been quite a good villain, doing something just so stupid. But anyway, not that the Red Lanterns have the monopoly on stupidity this episode. There's quite a bit going on with Hal and Kilowog. With both the bomb and the ship being empty. Now look, I've previously mentioned how Star Trek, I think, is a very clear influence on the show. Now, for all its flaws, in most cases, in most situations like this on Star Trek, the heroes would always run a freaking sensor scan. I mean, think about this. If they had just bothered to scan the ships, they would have, in all likelihood, noticed that there was a bomb, or at least noticed the ship was empty. And the fact that they didn't do this just completely and utterly blows my mind, because you would think that Green Lanterns would be trained to do this. Or now, granted, they're flying around in a spaceship, and Green Lanterns don't usually do that. But I'm pretty sure their rings can do scans of things like this. So again, the fact that they just would not think to check this out before going in there, it just makes them seem dumb. But anyway, let's take a step back from that and start talking about some of the other things. I did like that they did have that big strategy powwow at the very beginning of the episode, and there we did get to see quite a lot of smart thinking, quite a lot of good reasoning going on with our heroes, which of course unfortunately really made them being so dumb later on in the episode seem so much more painful. And I did like a little bit later on we do see Kilowog shooting a nasty comment Razor's way that reminds us that, yeah, Razor does have no small amount of experience when it comes to explosives. So again, as we're nearing the end of the season, we get that call back to the first episode, and we do get a reminder on what does become a fairly important plot detail. Let's see here. Now, in terms of character, one thing that is even acknowledged in terms by the characters in the show itself is how much Aya has grown as a character. Before, the fact that she was a ship who had taken it on herself to construct a living body for herself, well, okay, not exactly a living body, but you know what I mean, and had essentially inducted herself into the Green Lantern Corps, it just seemed, at worst, hubris on Aya's part, and at best, just extreme naivety. But here we see, and as I said, this is even acknowledged by the characters on the show, that as a living being, Aya has grown tremendously. And I did like that it's Razor who is the one who is the most prominent in pointing this out. He did say, and I'm sure this is a deliberate nod to Transformers, that there is more than meets the eye to Aya. with for those of you who may not be familiar with the Transformers, especially G1 Generation 1 Transformers, of which I am genuinely a fan, as are a lot of guys my age. More than meets the eye was sort of the tagline that was used a lot with Transformers back then, back in the 1980s. So I did definitely get a kick out of that. But then we get the big switch here that somehow, in the matter of minutes, Atrocitus and Zelias were able to take control of Aya and, even by her own admission, make her a member of the Red Lantern Corps, if not in an actual Red Lantern. So here we see a great parallel. Before, we were used to seeing a Red Lantern who had allied themselves with the Green Lanterns. And now here we have the exact opposite. A Green Lantern who is now allied with the Red Lanterns. And in what has to be an act of no small amount of painful irony, it is Aya and Razor who are now on opposite sides of each other, who are now opposed to each other, who, of all people, are the ones who have genuinely formed the strongest bond together. Now, not that Hal and Kilowog don't have a great bond, but in bringing Razor aboard, into bringing him onto this team, it was Aya who Razor developed that strong bond with. Her caring about him in that limited capacity that she has to do so really did, even though he never admitted it, it clearly did mean quite a bit to Razor. It was really the closest thing he had to anything good in his life at this point. And now the Red Lanterns have once again taken that from him. It is just like in their oath. They will turn, take, and twist those things into instruments of hate and death. And I can't help but think that, just in terms of pure storytelling, the next part of the story is going to demand a fight between Aya and Razor. And where that will go in terms of both the story itself and their characters, that's something I think more than anything I really want to see. And I think this right here shows us why Razor is on the show, why they chose to create this character for the show rather than taking a previously established character from the comics. It does give them the tremendous freedom to do these sort of things, and I have to give a lot of credit to the writing team for going there and doing that in such a wonderful way. Another thing that I got a kick out of that we did get from Razor this episode, where he talks about when the ship is zooming towards the exit in a very, very sort of Star Wars-y moment. He goes, "Must go faster." Now, he says it in that very sort of flat, monotone way that Razor tends to speak in, but I had to think about it for a little while, but I realized that was in all likelihood a shout out to Jeff Goldblum's Ian Malcolm character from the movie Jurassic Park. You remember the part where he goes, "Must go faster, must go faster"? Yeah. Now, again, that could be just a coincidence, but given all the subtle allusions and very obvious shout outs that this show has done to other sort of sci-fi things, I'm going to guess that was probably a deliberate deliberate act on the part of the writers. So let's take a moment to hop on back to Mogo and talk about the things that were happening there. It was a little odd, but very, very interesting to watch the mentor relationship between Mogo and Saint Walker. And it did, in a way, remind me a little bit of the way Saint Walker played Kung Fu Master to Razor when they met. Because we do see that for all the goodness within him, there is still rage in Saint Walker's heart. He wants revenge on the Red Lantern Corps. And now he's going from guiding Razor, someone who is driven by rage, to being guided by Mogo to deal with his own rage. And the whole climbing the mountain to find the savior. You know, that's very indicative of all those old stories about somebody having to go and climb a mountain to find some great guru sitting up there. And I like how they never flat out say it. They don't, because they don't really need to. That Saint Walker is the savior that he has been looking for. He just doesn't realize it. And of course, at the end, he finds the Blue Lantern and even says the words of the Blue Lanterns. Not their oath, but their mission statement, if you will. All will be well. So that is there to, of course, give us hope. And hope is the emotion that drives the Blue Lanterns. Because given how things are going over in Hal, Kilowog, and Razor's neck of space, some hope is definitely needed at this point. Overall, I think this is this is a fairly good episode. As I said, it's really more weighed down by the fact that the heroes do some stuff, and the villains, of course, do some stuff that is pretty dumb. But wait! I almost forgot before I sign off. There was one more thing I wanted to talk about. We do get to see Zartok again, the alien warrior who is on Mogo. And given his dialogue, we're sort of led to believe that he's going to be inducted into the Red Lantern Corps, or at least made the leader. And of course, it then turns out that it is Drusa who is made the leader here. Zartok, of course, is voiced by the one and only Clancy Brown, who you guys would probably know as Lex Luthor for many years on Justice League. He's currently Savage Opress on Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Lots and lots of voice acting work, but of course he's probably best known as the Kurgan in the original 80s movie from The Highlander. And Drusa, in what is absolutely positively has to be a shout out, is voiced by none other than Juliet Landau, who is the voice of Drusilla on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And she's also done a bit of voice acting work. She was on Justice League as well. She's appeared in some of the more recent DC animation. I know she was on Ben 10 a little bit here and there. So again, I got a real kick out of that. I had not previously realized that it was Juliet Landau who was doing that. And in my previous review where we saw them, I actually mistook Clancy Brown for John DiMaggio. So, okay, my bad on that one. But it was really nice to see those two characters again, and I'm certainly excited to see more of Drusa now that I know that she's voiced by Juliet Landau. I got a huge kick out of her role as her performance, I should say, as Drusilla on Buffy and back in the day. So always nice to see her turning up. Anyway, overall pretty solid episode. I thought that again, I was really bothered by just how dumb the heroes were at certain points in the story. But I still think there are enough good elements floating around that we're going to get a pretty exciting conclusion to the season coming up. Anyway, until next time, folks, please comment, rate, and subscribe as always. You can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. And until next time, take care and have a good one.